Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. We at GemAtlas are glad to have Amish Shah and Vivek Dhadha with us today to discuss how traditional family-run businesses have changed in the diamond industry. Amish Shah is the president of ALTR Created Diamonds. After gaining experience through his family business in the diamond and fine jewelry industry, he joined R Grosbard Inc. in New York in 2001 and helped transform it to an international powerhouse. 10 years later, he took over its operations and led a merger with his family business, conceiving R R Grosbard Inc. in New York itself, which includes ALTR Created Diamonds. Amish Bhai has been committed to advancing the future of jewelry through technological innovations, consumer and jeweler education, environmental initiatives, and utilizing the top industrial artisans. Vivek Dhadha heads the Asia Pacific business for Kanti Dhadha Group of companies founded by his father in 1964. He is the second generation in the family business and has been part of the diamond and fine jewelry industry for 27 years. Vivek Bhai has been committed to advancing his family business to the next level. Audience, during this panel discussion, you will learn about the challenges faced and paths to overcome them while running a family business in the gems and jewelry industry, as our panelists talk about their experience evolving their respective businesses and taking it to the next level. GemAtlas is a global B2B networking platform for the gems and jewelry industry. We have over 100,000 members in over 150 countries. Recently, GemAtlas launched a diamond demand app called GA Demands, which helps users connect with the right suppliers for natural, lab-grown, and parcel diamonds domestically at no cost. With several features already available, we have also recently launched a knowledge section for all industry insights, access to all our webinars and articles at your fingertips. The app is currently only available for Indian mobile numbers, and we are soon updating it to make it grow further internationally. At the end of the webinar, there will be a Q&A session. Please put all your questions in the Q&A section on your screen. We're so glad to host this panel discussion. Let's jump right into the discussion. So Amish Bhai, can you let us know what classifies as a family business?
Thank you, Prithvi. When primarily more than one family member owns and jointly runs the business, typically it's termed as a family business. And this could be multi-generational. You could have a father, son, brother, sister, multiple scenarios. But that's typically how in our culture we've always determined and defined a family business where a majority of the ownership is still within the family. The key decisions.
Okay, perfect. So, I mean, that's great to know. So, Vivek bhai, why do you feel family-run businesses are so popular in the industry, and how have they evolved in the last decade?
So, like we all know, diamond industry has always been built on trust, and over the years, it's always been the thing where the family bonding and everything. So we've always, like Amish bhai said, it's always been families who started. The business has been based on one-on-one relations, personal relationships, and family ties always have helped the business grow. Over the years, I mean, the industry in itself is within a lot of families, I would say. I mean, the whole business itself becomes like a family. We've had, let's say, generations come in. I'm the second generation in the business. We've always been taught how to handle the business, and that's always been the way it's grown.
Okay, that's really okay. Fine, perfect. Amish, do you have any insights on that from your part?
So the way I see it is, Prithvi, primarily artisan-run industries are always legacy-based.
Yes.
And if you look at Indian, Armenian, Thai, Jewish, any of the cultures, primarily because artisan art, which was primarily the art of jewelry, when you look at our industry, is always legacy-based. And that was one of the reasons family businesses were almost formed in our industry. When you look at the different models, you have family-run, family-owned, which has always been the model for probably almost 100 years or more. Your family-run and family-owned, professionally run, which are the models today. And this is how the overall space right now, in terms of the ownership and the term of family businesses run. There is no set college to teach you how to do it. But primarily, when you look at it, it's from father to son or father to daughter, which is now the two primary ways that the businesses are being inherited as well as being taught. And it's the primary transition of art, ethics, morale, and the support of capital that happens.
Yeah, that's very well said. And what do you feel about the idea of joint family businesses? Do you feel like it's a boon or bane?
I think it's a very interesting question because, joint family businesses are seen very differently. When you see culturally, until the 70s in India, primarily, and Jewish families still have it, but it's primarily being joint families. Brothers or people live together, which has gone down a lot. And until the 70s, the families were always together. This is when people started moving out of India. You had the Western part kick in, some brothers went out of the business, and a lot of family businesses started going into the semi-professional mode. Now, the benefit, or is it boon or bane, is very interesting from the perspective is, it's a boon when you see it from our perspective is the support that one gets as a family business, because we all have to keep in mind, we all have strengths and weaknesses. And this is where the biggest support comes from the family. Not only that you get to learn the art, the ethics, and get capital support when you're barely out of college, but importantly, you get someone to fill in for your weakness and somebody to lean on. When you look at our industry, especially, it becomes even further important because until recently, or almost even till today, is trust. Who do you trust and who can you lean on in times of need? So to me, a family business or having joint family businesses is a boon. From a bane perspective, or is it I think the Western culture kicking in and the way it's seen is, the big question is, what about me? You have 3 members, 4 members, not every member performs or not every member does the same job. So the question has come up and you see family splitting. I think it's a mistake. I think this is my personal views, but I believe, and I've seen it because I can say with experience, my grandfather and their brothers were all together as a joint family, as a business and a family. I saw my father and their brothers split in the same thing in the 70s. And today, me and my brother are a joint family business. So I can see the strengths where we got weak and where we're strong today. So I think it's a boon. And if cultures can hold it together and we'll be able to transition this, it'll be amazing.
That's a really interesting perspective. I feel like, not many people can say the same. Some people might not have experienced it also because of their situations, but I think that it's a great perspective that you've brought on the table. And I think people should really try and embrace whatever family and whatever family business they have, and really try and strive and take it to the next level. Yeah. So Vivek bhai, any thoughts on this that you might have?
No, I 100% agree. I mean, like Amish bhai said, we take care of our strengths and weaknesses. The idea is the source of capital. When you're in with your brothers, and like you said before, a lot of family-run businesses had much larger families, and they still were able to stick together. They took care of everything from manufacturing to sales to marketing. Everything was taken care of by the family. Family is obviously getting smaller today, but it's definitely, for me as well, I think it is definitely a boon, because when you're in it with the family, there's a certain amount of trust in there. They take care of your weaknesses, and it definitely helps. For sure, it's a great support.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to have, the support. And also being in a family business, what changes have you seen in this business, Vivek bhai? And also, how do you feel family-run businesses can maybe use these changes to improve their business and take it forward?
See, I think one of the biggest changes that I've probably seen is over the years, families have got smaller, you know. I mean, our family, my father were like 7 brothers, you know, and there's always a large family in the business. There's lots more things, people to take care of things. And now, obviously, we don't have that large families. Families obviously nuclear. So one of the biggest changes you see is that you need a lot more of support from employees that have started coming in. Families are not as large. That's one. Second, I think as the next generation comes in, today they're more opinionated. If I take when I joined the business, we were told how things were run, and we were always groomed into the way that the business was running. Today, as probably education levels are a lot different and things are different, as the next generation is coming in, they're coming in with their own opinions of how to run the business. And I think there's a bit of that needs to be adjusted. We need to start accommodating that there are much more, I mean, say new ideas coming for the next generation. Technology has changed. We go back to maybe the 1990s or 2000s, you know, diamonds were never sold online. Today, that's a major difference that's happened. Certification is another major difference, where earlier in terms of family-run businesses, everything had to be seen by us on a personal level. Now, I'd say probably because of certification, all of these things, and the online, the technology that we have today, things have changed tremendously that you can actually delegate a lot more. And in that way, I think the family-run businesses are working even better, even though they're probably more nuclear today.
Yes, definitely. That's a great point that you brought up, especially about how family-run businesses have inculcated technology into their operations, into their working, into their sales. Amish, would you like to elaborate on how technology can actually be leveraged in family-run businesses?
I think we ourselves will be a good example as a family where technology is the core base. As 2 brothers and the wives that actually run the business under dad's guidance, we're located in different parts of the world. You know, between US and India, trying to run a business in Australia, Dubai, Hong Kong, US. Technology is key to any business today. I think when we talk of family businesses, I think what's integral is how the family is woven in together in terms of making decisions and supporting each other and leveraging technology. I think what Vivek said, which is very true of a nuclear family, similarly where dad and they were 4 brothers, 3 sisters, a family of 7, and we're down to 2 of us. So sometimes you think, I wish I had 2 more brothers. Somebody was running finance and somebody was overlooking the factory. I think the evolution where I see that has happened, and especially for New York, I can say this as a Indian company in New York that has actually only 2 employees today that are Indian. What happens is, while you have less brothers and sisters who could enter the business, the employees start turning into family. And I think that's how we have seen it. And I always joke within my team, if I had to open the safes, I don't know how to open it. With a low iteration rate, with an average of 15 years on an employee age in the company, I think the business starts becoming family. So I have a little different views from that perspective, where for us, the people in the business who've been around are family. You know, grew up in a family where I remember the gentleman who worked with my granddad as his sort of right hand or taking care of him in business, working with him business, was there for 42 years. So, you know, we come from that culture where people stay with you, people are with you because you take care of them as much as they take care of you. Now, when we talk about the shifts, I think the way I see it is, what is your role when you're looking at a multi-generational family business. You're really a bridge. It's a past and a future. From the past, what you get, you learn the artisanal art, if it's diamonds or jewelry, or how to run a business. And that's the one big blessing or boon that you don't learn in colleges. Experience is far superior than going to school. So that is something you learned. And I don't know about Vivek, but I can say that for sure, that most of my schooling was in the office. Never went to do masters, never did PhD. And it's exactly what I say is my granddad, when I got my opportunity to do a scholarship and go do masters, he said, you were born in the jewelry business and you're going to stay in the jewelry business. And that was the end. And that was the beginning. So I think after 30 years, I can say, I think that was a smart decision of staying in the business. So you become a bridge. You become a bridge from what you learn from your parents, but very importantly, you become important to the next generation. Technology has to get integrated, ethics and art. And the art of running the business and keeping the families together, that's the big job. And I guess especially us being as Indians, I always say it starts from the kitchen, ends in the office, if it's a joint family. And it's a true story. You don't only break businesses, you can break families when you have joint family businesses. So I think that's how I see it. Technology will play a very important role of keeping people together, but it's the people that will keep everybody together.
That's a very very interesting perspective, and especially the part where your grandfather said that you were born in this business and that you will stay in this business. So I feel like when you are going to stay in the family business, how do you feel? What are your thoughts on the next generation being groomed and being able to sustain the business and not just sustain, but strive strive to thrive in the business, I would say?
I think what we have to realize is every generation is impacted by the changes around the world, that be it from technology, socially, and the overall demographics. 50 years ago, the world was a small place. Even today, we say the world is a small place. The only difference is that everything's gone really small. In 1929, in World War I, if something happened in one country, it would take days before somebody else found out about it. Today, it doesn't take seconds. So the world has got smaller. But when we look, so that is one thing we have to very importantly realize, that children today are impacted with these changes. Their level of knowledge, their access to information, and their viewpoints, like how Vivek said, are much stronger than we had. We used to say yes, even if we were not sure about it, or we disagreed with it. Because we were told exactly, this is how you start, this is how you do it. I was a computer student. I taught at the age of 12 in India in 1980s. I used to teach computers. And when I got my opportunity to do masters, and I was just told no, and I said, okay, and I started work. So that was that time. Today, I don't think that's almost possible with any children. So you have to balance that and learn that what you couldn't get from your predecessors is the opportunity to really change things, is where you need to listen to the children. So it's almost going to have to come to a balance. One is teaching them what you have learned. Once again, that I'll say. But importantly, also listening to them, what changes they feel need to be brought in, be it from technology to the way we do our businesses, the way we run our finances, especially as Indian families, how we do our business, the way we see a finance, and how the world has become a small place today. What to me is very important to have a successful transition in a family business. Do not do what your predecessors did. Do what you wanted to do when you were taking over from your predecessors. Listen to the people you want your business to be taken over by, and teach them how to bridge it. So the biggest responsibility you hold is bridging if you're looking for your next generation take it, because we have to keep two things in mind. Number one, it's not always going to be a male counterpart in your business that's going to take over now. It could be a female. That is also going to have a shift in how your businesses are going to be run in future. So there's a lot of change that is happening. And it depends on how early do you start grooming. You know, in the artisan world, at 5 and 8 years old, we were sitting in the living room listening about business. And today, people are still in college at 27 and 26 and 30. So that is also different. You know, grooming them at an early age is not only important, it's critical. I have friends where I see their kids, even at 22, still hanging out, and I think that blend has to come. So I guess I might have a little old world views, but I think that what most people don't realize is my college was in my office. My post-graduation was in the factory. And then I finally did double majors when I left and came here and again worked for somebody. And finally, I am where I am because not only of the values that my parents and grandparents taught me, but also importantly, because I invested in learning my business. And not that I'm demeaning any schools or colleges. It's important, but the fusion's very important. Also not to lose your children into going and picking up jobs.
I think that's really, really well said and a very, very powerful message, especially to everyone that is actually just getting into the family business or that is going to get into the family business. Vivek bhai, what are your thoughts on this? Because I feel like you might have like a very interesting view as well, as to maybe if you would like to tell a couple of your personal of your experiences or what you feel might be might be a good way to kind of get into the family business for the younger generation, as well as maybe you could say a generation above that.
So first, then, Prithvi, I'd like to probably add, like Amish bhai said, years back when our schooling in the business was always in the office, At least for me, when I wanted to study further, I was told, like, you want to study further, you go to the Israel office, that's your post-graduation, you go to the Antwerp office, and that was what studying abroad meant for us. You just go to your different offices and you learn a different way of running a business, or you learn how different sizes are dealt with. And back then, if you want to do larger sizes, you had to go abroad, to Antwerp or Israel and see how that was done. Coming back to the point of how we stay relevant to the next generation, I think the most important thing that I see is today we have to accept that they have strong opinions about things. We need to be adjusting to that. And like probably happened to me at least, I used to come to the office, I don't know, since I was probably 5, 6 years old, just come in on a weekend for a few hours and stay around. You see how things are happening, And from a young age, it only develops an interest into what's happening in the office. You're curious. You're far more curious. Today, I think I see that is lacking a lot of people, where people actually think that as long as they're in college, they don't need to understand or see what is happening in the business. And like Amish bhai said, a lot of people at 22, 23, are roaming around and they wouldn't have a clue what's happening in the business. Family businesses always had business discussions that would happen because you were joint families. So your fathers, brothers would be talking business, or grandparents would be talking business, let's say, with their kids. And you would always hear about the business, which is something that it just naturally then started coming into you. You knew how things were happening. I think if we give that same thing to the next generation, if we include them in the decision-making process, we are willing to accept that today in terms of technology, probably they can do things a lot better in terms of adapting new technology to the business. They have probably a few ideas that we can incorporate. So that's the mix and match that I kind of think that we come with experience. We come in with the business ethics that we need to pass on to the next generation, need to explain to them how important goodwill is, especially in the diamond business, how important trust factor is in the business, and maybe be open to some of their ideas of how technology can be incorporated further in growing the business from here on.
Yeah, that's a really that's a very good way to put it to the audience. So you actually brought up a very interesting point in terms of giving them power, giving the younger generation power for decision making, ability to kind of inculcate technology into the business. But what we also see in family businesses are that the older generation and the younger generation, they have a very different mindset. In terms of the older generation, you see a lot of them want to stick to the way that the operations in which they've been taught and they've been running it as is. And the younger ones are looking to actually boost the business a lot more with the help of technology, with the help of certain operation processes, all of this stuff. How do you feel like, how would you could say, suggest people, the older and the younger generation, to sort of bridge that gap, to kind of come to like a middle ground, to maybe sort it out, you could say?
So I think the very first thing, I think the difference between the previous generation and today, the way I see it is, if you're looking back 20 years, when you are business, the opportunities on the outside were also limited. Today, we have to accept the fact that with education, with degrees, and with the number of opportunities that are there, the younger generation has a lot of opportunity. So it's not like, if we had an argument, let's say, with our parents about the business or whatever, we could just say, you know what, I have the opportunity to go set up a new business, do a startup, and I can run something. Today, because the younger generation has that, they obviously have a short temperament. We need to learn to deal with that. We need to understand that they're not going to be the exact same way that we were with our parents, I think if you have an open conversation with them, if we go in with an open mind and try and be a lot less rigid about how things have to be in our business. There are some sound principles on which the business is set. Of course, correct. But there are many other things that I think today, take for example, if I had told, let's say, my grandparents, that you'll be selling diamonds online, they would have probably laughed it off, They would not accepted that that's even possible. Who would actually buy a diamond just based on a certificate or a paper, whatever it is? But today it's happening. There was a time when we would have to travel a lot, to reach out to customers. Now, thanks to videos and imaging technology and things like that, you can actually be selling a diamond without actually having the customer even seen it, beyond certification as well. So a lot of that is what we need to start accepting, that the next generation has ideas. If we give them an open hearing, if we are open to their ideas as well, I think it would kind of help them feel that, yes, they are part of the business. And it's not a hierarchy. See, today in every business today, there was a time that there used to be a hierarchy where people have to report, and I had to report to my father and he would report to his elder brother and things like that. Today, that's not the case for most businesses, and that's something that even family-run businesses have got to accept. We have to treat them as equals. We have to treat them as part of the businesses, as partners in the business, and not treat them as people who have to listen to whatever we say, no matter what it is. I think that's one of the most important things, I believe, to ensure that they are interested in this business and the business remains relevant to them.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, Amish, anything that you'd like to add on this in terms of how you can bridge that gap between like the older generation, the younger generation? How can they maybe communicate with each other to maybe use certain technology, maybe different ideas, different innovations that they'd like to implement? Anything that you'd like to add on that?
I think I love what Vivek said. I think the most important part of bridging to the next generation is adapting to the changes in the environments they've grown up, the ideas they have, and seeing how you can evolve the business. As we all get older, what happens is we get comfortable with the scenarios. Businesses are settled. We want to take lower risk. And when a younger adult enters into the business, their risk-taking ability is far higher than yours. So this is one thing. It's a psychological, when you're in your 20s to your 30s to your 40s to your 50s, psychologically your risk-taking abilities and maneuvering is far different. So it's very important to accept that. One part that, like he said, it's very important to know that the younger generation today, and this is very important because male and female entrants are going to be there in the businesses. You're not only going to have male entrances. So you have to first make sure your business model is built to take either or and change the type of operational part. Secondly, they come in with ideas that are far global than yours at this time, from their colleges, from the schools, and the wider level of knowledge they have. So it's almost like allowing them to build their startup, but within your business. Something that we were not given completely the opportunity or not at the level we believe they can get it. So it's accepting them and adopting them to there. It's like retain the principles, but evolve the business. The parts where I'll say is please make sure you don't make them lazy. This is the one part where sometimes, and I see it in New York, I see it in Bombay with friends and friends' kids. Some of them are like, I didn't get this, so I want my son to have this. I didn't get this, so I want my daughter to have this. I want her to do this. It is great, but if you don't integrate them in time enough, then what happens is that it gets late. Some of these values that have been transitioned from generations have a lot of knowledge behind them. So we shouldn't forget that, somebody who starts learning business at 16, 23, and 30 are going to have a very different view about the business. The eyes and ears when they are younger, when their absorption as well as patience rate is much higher. Also in family business, you have to keep in mind one of the biggest things, and I'm sure Vivek will agree, you don't always end up agreeing with your brother. You don't always end up agreeing with your dad. And while there are closed door conversations within the family, the one thing you learn is that if it's an elder in the family, you know when not to say something, respect their experience, even if you don't agree with them. And if it's your brother, you debate, but at the end of the day, when the door of the room opens, you both have come to a conclusion that is in interest of the family. These values are priceless. And these values need to be put into the children that are coming in the businesses. You can give them businesses, multi-million-dollar businesses and all of that. But without the pillars, those businesses will fail. You can have, I've seen this also, you can have very, very educated children. They come in and they completely destroy the values, because you can take a family-run business and turn it into corporate, which is now in fashion, that, our business needs to be very corporate. But we forget that the core strengths of family businesses were the values that came in from the family. And what we need to do is run it more professionally, take the things that we learn and integrate them. And I think maybe I rotate around that part a lot more because I guess the older you get, the more you realize the values of all of this. So that's, one part. And one just part I will add is allow them to take the risk at a younger age when they're able to do that versus forcing them to fit into the comfort zone that you are. Don't worry about it. We don't need to do this. Don't worry about it. We have enough money. Don't worry about this. Our business is big enough. This is where you actually hold them off at an age when they're willing to bring change. So, a lot of people think that, oh, the kids will disrupt this business. Well, disruption is a form of innovation. You wanted to do that when you came in the business, but you couldn't. But don't stop your children to do that.
I think that's a great point that you've added over there. And I feel like a lot of the younger generation has faced some of this, especially like, when you start to talk to a few of them, the ideas that they want to put forth are, they're not actually able to implement it because of this. And yes, the main thing is respect, is to respect your elders, to respect everyone, as a matter of fact. Younger, elder, doesn't matter. But you also brought up a very good point about how now females are also going to be coming into and how they have already come into the business. So what kind of model do you feel many people should be able to should have or should be able to inculcate, such that it's an easier transition from the workings of their business to the newer workings when this is the situation? Because as you know, this business is pretty male dominated, and we are very happy to see, and we are actually very happy to see a lot of females come into this business and take charge of it.
So it's a very good point, and I specifically brought that up because it's very seldom spoken. Businesses were always male. It's almost legacy went in male to male, which has started changing. I think I adore the wives, the daughters that are entering in the business. And you don't need to change the model. Model is model. Today the world is smaller. Even if the daughter marries into another family or is, it continues. It stays on. I think it's about, the biggest one is for yourself to accept. It's not for somebody else to accept. It's for you to accept as a family that the next one going to potentially run your business is going to be your daughter. And or if you have a wife who's smart and can run a business, is allowing them to take over responsibilities and run the business. Of course, everybody has a different family structure, so it's subjective, it's situational, and as such, it's like a lot of times you're like, oh yeah, the daughter can run, the wife can't do it. So a lot of those things are changing. It's happening in India, it's happening here. So I think it's happening everywhere. But I think it's not about the world adopting it. It's not about the industry adopting it. It's about you who feels that this is how business has run, has to now adopt it. It's capitalizing on the strengths because, we're a nuclear family. With nuclear families coming in place, becoming a norm for the future, using this strength, energies, capitalizing the strengths is more crucial. And that's how I see it.
Yeah, that's a very valid point over there. So also, Amish bhai, if you could tell us, like, what do you foresee for family businesses over the next decade? Like, where do you see them going? Where do you see them changing? Maybe the management style, maybe it could be an n number of factors. But what do you foresee for all of these factors in a family business changing in the next decade?
I think the way I see it is, first and foremost, there is a strong need to a strong need for everyone to agree and understand that family businesses need to stay around. I guess this is my personal views because I believe that there's a lot of value in them. Family-owned, family-run was a thing is how we took it. Today we are family-owned, professionally run. And when I mean professionally run is where you still have the family members and you have other professionals that are becoming a part of that family. Regarding how this will evolve in the next decade, it's all about how each family sees involving the children in the business. It's this whole new trend about, I don't think my kids need to come into the business. We have turned artisans into engineers and want them to go outside the business. Some part of it is really our fault. We inherited a business, and today some parts of this industry is struggling because we have not evolved. Everybody got in the comfort zone. So rather than having your children go somewhere else and restart, bring them in, give them the opportunity to evolve your own business. And then the part that comes important is, are they 7 or are they 17 today? Is at what age do you start bringing them in so that their desire and love for the business starts at an early age? This, I don't know. I feel that it's very important. Start training them, tell them your problems. When you're 40 and you're like, you're not going to understand the problem I have in office. Well, I think we're wrong. Sit with them and say, what? I had this problem with this staff member. Do you think you have an idea that I can resolve this? Or can you come to office and help me out on this? Very few parents tell their children, can you come to office and help me? What they will say is, you're not coming to work, you're hanging out, you're going to watch a movie, or you're doing this. So it's how we will adopt to that. I think that's what needs to change. What you're asking is actually a result. So the result is not definitive. Results are never definitive. The efforts can be. So if you start involving your children, talking to them about at an early age, respecting their level of knowledge, empowering them of making decisions along your side, their desire will go up. Oh, you know what? I can go to office and I believe that I can help you change in this department. You have technology problems, talk to your 17-year-old and say, can you help me? I have this issue, or, I heard this technology is out there. Do you think we can use in our business? You will be surprised what will change. It's like I told one of my friends 3 or 4 weeks ago, I said, your son's in college. You keep struggling about opening this whole direct-to-consumer business and e-com and that. I said, what are you waiting for? I said, you're looking to hire somebody. I said, hire your own son. I said, hire your son, tell him this is your project, and let him run it. I said, what's the worst? So that's what's needed. You open your mind and say, you know what? You want to disrupt? Here, disrupt my own business. Because if you see, one thing in life is clear. If you don't disrupt your own business, somebody else is going to do this. And this is, forget it, any industry, diamond, jewelry, you go in any industry. So the most successful ones are that actually tell their next generations to disrupt. And that's how, Prithvi, I see that those are the efforts we need to make. The results will happen. If you make the right efforts, things fall in place. And if things don't fall in place, someday they will. Just make the efforts. So that's my view.
I think that everyone can personally resonate with something like that. Vivek, anything that you'd also like to add over there?
Well, actually, there are a couple of points, I think, very valid points that Amish has raised. And one that I probably want to raise is when you're talking about the daughters coming to the business or the wives coming to the business. The one change that I would personally want to see is that the role that we still see in the industry, the face of the business still maintains to be a male figurehead. We've had the daughters come in who probably taken other roles in the businesses, where it could be probably accounts or other things, or the jewelry division of things like that. But it would be amazing to actually see a lot of the females coming in and heading some of these family-run businesses. We should be open to that. I think that's something that should start happening. And I don't see any reason why not. That's one. Second, like Amish Bhai said about the next generation, they would accept the fact we are in an environment today where startup is the culture. 20 years back when family-run business were being run, we were told you grow slow and steady. That necessarily doesn't work with the new generation. They used to seeing startups, they used to scaling up. I mean, that is the key word that everyone keeps hearing, and scaling up fast. You can let them do that to another business, or like Amish Bhai said, give them their own startup. Let them start a division in your business. Let them do what they have to disrupt that division, create something which will then keep them interested in continuing the business. We have to let them believe and enable them to create value. I think that's very important for the new generation. They want to be able to create value. And in a family-run environment, in general, sometimes it's difficult to be able to take out what an individual has created in terms of value. So I'd go back 20 years when I joined the business. I mean, you were just doing the entire business. There was not a certain profit center that's appropriated to you, or that you knew, what value you're bringing on the table. But if at an early age, you give them a division, you let them handle a certain problem, they can see what they're bringing to the business. And I think that would get a lot of them more interested in coming up and taking care of the entire business.
Definitely. And also, Amish Bhai said a very valid point where family-run businesses are always going to be there. They are going to be there in the future. But what do you feel is, do you feel there'll be a lot more professionally run businesses that actually come up, or as you might say, start up in this industry? Or do you feel like family-run businesses will you could say dominate this industry in the way that it has been doing?
I think
in the future,
that's going to be a tough question, because there is a push from various sectors. I mean, from various partners to the business of requesting professional management coming in, or corporatization taking place. Even in terms of structures. Say 20 years back, most companies used to be only partnerships. We never had limited companies back then as much. Today, most people have to become corporates. The need for funds have increased. 20 years back, the funding, whatever was into the business, or let's say 25, 30 years, was majorly either from your family, your relatives. It was all funded internally. Today, the need for fund has become external. The need to growth forces you to use external funding. So there is that push from, it could be bankers or other people asking for more professional management to come in. But I still believe that in the jewelry industry, in the diamond industry, the value that a family-run business brings to the table is far greater than a professionally run business. Or let me put it this way. I'm not talking about a family-owned, professionally run business, because that still has family people in it, that still has family members bringing value to the table and ensuring that the ethics, the values remain the same in the company. If you go to a complete corporate structure, a completely professional run management company, professionally managed company, I think a lot of the values and ethics that this business has grown upon would be lost. So for sure, I would hope that the future still remains majorly in the family-run businesses than the professionally run ones.
Yeah, that family touch, I think, is very important, especially because it's such an intimate thing as diamonds and jewelry. Such a like you need that personal touch, you need that personal feel of the person and the family. You could say the values of the family. Amish, anything that you'd like to put forth over there? I think
No,
you see.
Vivek, I agree with Vivek completely. I think corporatization of the industry is a very different approach, especially in an artisanal industry. Diamonds has still become more of a commodity. Jewelry is still an artisanal thing. And learning this art at an early age is going to be important. Family-owned, professionally run is far a better choice, according to me, where the key decisions are still held by families. The need for capital today has increased. When you look at how India is going to grow in the next 5-10 years, even for the businesses there, or when you look at it at a global scale, it's hard for small family businesses to survive. The question then stays is very simple. Do you want to run your own family small business, be happy with what you have, and you go at a certain pace? Or do you want to turn into a corporate and work for it? It's like a lot of times I tell people, where people tell me, it's like, why don't you take some big investors and grow at a certain pace? And I said, I'm not looking for a job. I said, I inherited what was given to me my family, which is not always all the money, it's the values, ethics, and what I learned. And I intend to pass it forward. Yes, I'm open to ideas. I'm open to taking affiliations, ventures, and that, but I'm not looking to cash out and then take a job in my own business. So that's, I guess, I agree with all his views, and I'm in complete sync with him on this.
That's really good. Great. So we have like a few questions from the audience. I think we'll open up questions from the audience. So our first question is from Angela. So she's asking, what are some of the challenges faced in running family-run businesses? Vivek bhai, if you wanna take this one, you can.
I think one of the biggest challenges is something that Amish bhai addressed a little earlier, which is in a corporate, you have maybe a CEO who has all the decision-making powers, or you know who the power center is. In a family-run businesses that has maybe 2 brothers, 3 brothers, or sub-cousins, it's always a joint decision. And one of the biggest challenges is coming to common grounds. Understanding that, yes, you could have different views, but in the best interest of your business, you have to find a common ground. Sometimes it's probably as quick as a few hours. Sometimes it's weeks and months of discussions, before you get into something. But that for me is always a challenge of how never to let that difference in business opinion affect your personal relations as well.
Yeah, that's very true. Amish bhai, you look like you wanted to say something, no?
No, I'm in agreement. I'm very, very important, especially the last line that Vivek said is in family businesses don't break, it breaks the family.
Yeah.
And this is where early on the children in the business, and means what we have learned is one thing, because we were in a structure where we were told, and it became a part who we are, is we can agree to disagree, but when we leave the room, we're still one.
Yes.
And that is very, very crucial. I think family businesses teach you very importantly to accept and still live together, be together, and make forward. Yes, you want to make changes but that's very important. So no, I was just smiling and agreeing with what Vivek was saying. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So next question is from Mira. She's asking, how does someone make the switch to teach their elders in the family business that there's so much more beyond their set ways of running a business? So Amish bhai, if you would like to take this up, I believe we've kind of answered this question, but maybe she wanted some more. Maybe Mira might want some more clarity on how to actually tackle the situation.
I think I have to think in a way. Wait a second. How do I teach my elders? I think the first thing, with respect, because I guess that's how I grew up, is there's nothing like teaching the elders. You learn from their experience. I think it's helping them realize It's one part is if you're in a midst of a situation where there's a transition issue, it's helping them feel comfortable that you're ready to take over the business. So that's the one part. If they feel you're not ready, it's helping them realize and that. In terms of when it said there's so much more beyond than set ways of running a business. I think this is the generational challenge that we have been discussing for the last hour, that while we expect our parents to listen, I think the parents, we have to do our best to help them understand. It's the confidence, at the end of the day, it's the confidence. The father's always protecting the business and the son or daughter, saying that, you're still learning. It's helping them understand that it is time now. And that is going to happen by actually with the confidence, building their confidence that you're capable of making decisions while learning from your mistakes. The biggest things parents are scared of is for you to trip because they have tripped. And yes, we might say at this moment, they don't realize that they tripped and they learned. So let us trip and us learn. But as parents, again, we are in the same situation saying, but we don't want you to trip. So it's gaining their confidence in doing it. And that's primarily what it is. Now, in terms of the ways the business is going to get run in the future, I think when you get in the position of making decisions, you have to evolve it. Some businesses will evolve slowly, and some, it depends on the width of the family. Like I said, if you have 6 brothers in the family business and you have kakas and everybody, it's going to be different than if it's 2 brothers. So it's knowing your role, where you are, and how much you can change. So if you come in the business and you're 23 and you're saying, listen, there's 4 other elders in the family and I want to overnight change this business, trust me, that's not happening. First learn, get in your place, and then try to bring change. So that's how I would say it with me.
That's a good way to put it. Yes, definitely. Vivek, were you trying to? Yeah.
Two things. So that's all. I'm assuming the person asking the question is asking from obviously the younger generation's view, and difficulty faced. I think one of the biggest things I think that needs to be done is if you're trying to get into an older generation, of a family business and you want to be heard, you can't go in there telling them that what they're doing is wrong or their way of handling business for years has been wrong. I think if you go tell, if you're a new generation in the business and then you want to get into the business, if you want to make a change, if you say, listen, I want to improve this, I want to make this thing better, I think it'll be more, you find more recipients in the family than going and saying, I think your way of working is wrong. And like Amish said, the most important thing is, whatever the argument might be, you can't forget that as your elders, you have to keep the respect. It could be your father, it could be your kakas, it could be anybody for that matter. I think arguments are obviously going to be part of the business, whether it's within the same generation or within a different generation. But the tone of the argument, the way things are put across, is very important. That decides whether you're heard in the right manner or whether you get brushed off, without being heard at all. So I honestly think if anyone comes, and I know for sure, we could not even say to maybe our dads and uncles, listen, you know what? I just think you're making a bad decision. That was not acceptable. But if you need to do this, I would probably tone it in a way that says, you know what, I understand your decision, but I think this would be a better way of doing things. I think that would probably be more acceptable.
Yes, definitely. So now we actually have a very interesting question from Bhavesh. We actually have 2 questions, and I'd like to club both of them together because they kind of they can go hand in hand. So what are some of the initial challenges you faced while taking over your family business? And if someone doesn't wish to join their family business, how does the family pass it on to someone else? So you could also take it such that because of the challenges, someone might not want to join the family business, but it's however y'all might want to take it. Amish bhai, Vivek bhai, it's open to y'all.
I think honestly, the second part of the question, if you do not want to come to the family business, how does it pass on to somebody else? Maybe different perspective, I think, from maybe America to India. I think America is still the stage that even family-run businesses can be sold off. That I think still lacks in India, the diamond business, because I think the business is the person and less of the company. So it's more difficult to pass things on. When it comes to the part of, I think the first part was you'd asked something about...
It was about the challenges that, the initial challenges that you faced while taking over your family business.
Honestly, if I was to think, I don't think it wasn't like a moment in time when I knew I was taking over the business. It just happened over years, and responsibilities were slowly passed on. So you never knew that, yes, you're taking over the business. For me, it was just a sudden realization at a time, oh, you know what? I have taken over the business. I never knew when I had taken it over, but it was just as you kept taking more and more responsibilities that things were passed on to you. And the challenge was obviously the very same thing. You had to do things sometimes which you didn't want to do, You had to, say, for example, for me, when I started off in the family business, I wanted to explore sales first. But since my elder brother, who's like a couple of years older to me, was already taking care of sales, I mean, he joined in, he was being groomed into the sales. I didn't have that option at that point in time. So I was obviously started off in a division that I didn't want to start off with, but that's something that you had to accept. That was something that you had to do.
Yeah, that's true. Amish bhai, what would you like to add on to this?
I think my story would be a very unusual one where it's a little different than Vivek, but for me, learning 4 years into the family business, I left the business once and then went to Okaka, left that, went to another one, left that, and I left the family. It was because granddad had always said, you were born in this business, you're staying in this business. So there was no concept of job. I was the one who disagreed with how this industry ran. I'm somebody who's very strong in what I believe needs to change. And with that part, I think after the first 4 years where nothing could change, I was only told what to do. And we still, accepting you hit that point. And at that point, I had actually left. So I left the family business, ended up in another jewelry company, in a family-owned company. Fate or luck, or however you say it, ended up taking over, going into the business, and then merged back into our family, which was me and my brother. So split out from Kaka, because I had seen my dad and Kakas and everybody from a younger age split out. So for me, there was one thing for sure, that I wanted to be with my brother. And so when I left the family and took a job, ended up becoming very powerful in the company, ended up running the business. With those owners, I actually merged back into a joint venture with my own brother and ended up taking over that Jewish family in New York and building our family business back. So early on, I entered into the business, I would say almost at the age of 17. By 21, I was already struggling to stay in the family business. And in the next 5 years, after going back and forth, coming to America 3 times, leaving America, wanting to bring change, finally, at the age of 26, I left the family. And 4 years later, did a joint venture. 5 years later, actually did a joint venture back with my brother. And then 5 years later, took over the business, brought it all back into the family. So it's a journey where I have seen that part. And I guess, as you get older, one of the big things that I believe nobody can defy is your family values that you learned growing up kick in. My dad's very conservative when it comes to making sure you're making decisions. It's the old world, you do not go beyond your means. We are still traditional. That's why I always say we are family owned, professionally run. I think that's the right balance. So I would say from the challenges, I think it all depends on how do you see values. I think I see values in the family business. So at the end of the day, for everything came back to where it started, I would say almost back to where granddad was, where he and his brothers started the business in 1933, where I always heard from dad that everybody stayed together, everybody worked together, everybody ate together, and the business flourished. And then everybody, all the brothers thought it's time to do our things. And, somebody went to America, somebody were this, and suddenly we saw. So I would feel that I wish if all our family was together, we would be a different level of business. But from where we are, we would like the family to grow the business. So that's my journey. So it's a little different than the traditional Indian family where we go out and you come back.
No, I think this was it's a very unique unique journey, you could say. Not I mean, it's a very, very unique, and I feel like a lot of people can actually learn from this. In ways to kind of inculcate a lot of different aspects into their family business the way you did.
Prithvi, I'd like to add something there.
Yeah.
I still remember most of the discussion, the family business discussions would always happen over lunch. Like you said, the family eats together, So no matter what happened, I mean, kakas, dad, cousins, everyone, you would get into the lunchroom together, and a lot of business discussions, would happen right there over lunch. And I think a lot of learning would happen over there. Well, hearing, your dad and his brothers talk and discussing business, things like that. So I think that itself was a very important learning phase for me.
That's a very good point that you put. I think I mean, I think food has always been like a very very good catalyst for businesses for family run businesses to actually have like a lot of business discussions. You see that in a lot of family businesses today as well. And being Indian, like, food is a very important part of our culture, and business is also a very important part of our culture. So I mean, you kind of put both of them together, and it just goes hand in hand, you could say. So yeah, I think Amish bhai, you'd be able to answer this next question from Deep. What advice would you give someone just starting a business in the diamond field?
I think for anybody who's entering the field, I think the first most important thing is, do you love this industry? I guess, passion drives you. If passion drives you and your passion is in the diamond or the fine jewelry business, then this is the right place for you. In terms of starting a business, this business is very tightly run by families, or be it in India, I mean, in the US, Israel, Dubai, Antwerp, whatever you say it. So it's finding your friends in the business, balancing between being yourself as well as being professionally run. The only way you're going to survive in the diamond business, and this is again, I will repeat saying this is my personal views, is if you're going to do something different. When we talk on the perspective of just the values you can bring, the old world diamond business is a thing of the past. The business today is about creating value and what values you can add that enable you to create a business. The component-based business, I think the way I would have to say it, diamonds are a component. So if you want to enter this field, being a diamond trader, a diamond broker, that I don't see a space. I don't think, means there's people getting out, not coming in. If you're talking about jewelry, then it's one thing is about building something around it. So either you're building a brand, Either you're building a value-driven conversation. That is the only way I believe that you will be actually successful. So it's design, desirability, technology, artisanal craft, and your ability to take the conversation to the market. This would be the right approach to enter into the business.
Definitely, definitely. Vivek, if you would like to, would you like to add anything to that? Or?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what Amish Bhai said, but along with that, I would say probably the understanding that for someone getting in the industry, one of the most important things to remember is this is not an industry where you grow overnight, you know? So somebody expects that they're getting into the industry and it's like a technology startup or something, where, you're like one of the big players in this thing. It doesn't happen that way. It's an industry where if you're coming in, you need to be in there for the long haul. You need to want to stay in it. You need to be able to get past I'd say a lot of issues that keep coming as part of any business in the matter. But this business is for the long haul.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Yes.
Absolutely.
And so talking about making like a difference, adding value, what Amish Bhai said, we actually have a question from Supriya asking how are the Gen Zers, which is the new generation, making a difference to the precious jewelry sector with the opinions and comments, and what are their demands in terms of design? So yeah, if Amish Bhai, because you're onto the new jewelry space, what would you like to say about this?
I think when we're talking about Gen Zs, pretty much every generation, be it the Zs or now we're talking even already of the As and Bs and the Cs. I think generation after generation, the desire for demand and the conversation that connects with them has changed. So if you're talking as an operator, it's everything we spoke about is adopting to how businesses are run and bringing them in and as such. So the most amazing part is as these younger people are entering the business, if you as who's currently sitting on the chair running the business as the responsible part of the family, listening to their opinions and comments, listening to their ideas will help you evolve the jewelry sector. And I see that happening in multiple companies where the younger generation is helping bridge their existing businesses into future. So that's the most amazing part, is that Gen Z's coming in the business, aligning with their ideas and their abilities will help take the jewelry sector to the next generation or the next decade of your business. In what are the demands in terms of design? I think this is very subjective because it's in different parts of the world. Of course, with globalization, designs are not only limited only to cultural ideas or cultural sections, so it's more wider. But in terms of the components used, the component availability is wider. In terms of design is very personal. So I think that's hard to answer because that's a very, very individualistic question. No two people want the exact same design when it comes to fine jewelry. But the evolution is on. Maybe in the Western world, which was more preset, it's moving into custom in terms of what somebody wants. In Asia, in India especially, growing up, what I've always known is most of it is custom anyway.
Yes, very true. Very true. We have another question. I think this is a great question from Sam. How do you create that barrier of work and home with the conflict of interest or arguments that you may have with your family member, keeping it separate from office at home and home? I think this is a great question, especially when it comes to family businesses, because as we all know that no two minds are the same, and you are always going to have a difference of opinion, a difference of decision, anything like that. So I feel there's a great question coming from Sam. Vivek bhai or Amish bhai, whichever you all would like to take it, please.
What I probably say is, I think part of this is probably when you grow up in a joint family, you kind of get that whole idea, I mean, you would probably disagree with your cousins or something, or it could be what you want to have for dinner, to as much as the room you're sharing with somebody, whatever it might be. We've always been taught in a joint family that you could have disagreements, but just because you may not agree with somebody, that does not go into. So I could have disagreed with my brother or something, but if the next day is Diwali, that does not go over to the festivals. So as a mindset, we were always trained never let those disagreements, affect our personal life. In terms of whether decision in the office come home, I think in a family-run business, there is no exact barrier that decisions are only made in the office or never spoken at home. In fact, I think the beauty is the fact that a lot of the businesses spoken at home, on the dinner table sometimes, is what gets the next generation interested in the business. Probably, when we talk about the next generation, also maybe today not being as interested, I think probably that's also got with the cultural fact that today we don't really have that insistence of families having dinner together. Back when I was a kid, it was an unquestionable fact. Your dinner was with the family at the table. You could not be going and having a dinner in the room or in front of the TV or later or before or whatever it was. So discussions always happen. So I don't think there's a differentiation between discussions happening in the office or at home. I think it always overlaps. And because being in a joint family, you're always used to the fact that a disagreement does not affect other parts of your life or your personal relations with the person. I think, Amish, you were about to say something as well.
No, I think I'm only smiling. I think you're so on point with this. Is number one in family business, like what you said, there is no work or home because it's consistently flowing seamless. The moment it's not flowing seamless, there's a problem.
Right.
So first, it's flowing seamless. The best decisions are sometimes taken on the dinner table or eating breakfast or as such together. And that is a very big value. Actually, that's what builds your family business. So that is truly something that we all are today missing on, either because we live in separate houses or we live far from each other. So that is one thing that we miss. In terms of business arguments coming into the house, I think I already feel that you learn this so early on that you don't even realize the thing exists. A business decision, you disagree and you said, I want to do the deal. The brother's like, I don't want to do the deal. You can argue, you fight, you leave the room, you go back to work. And an hour later, you're like, okay, whatever, You have learned to do that. You have elders, you have the most amazing idea that you feel is the most amazing idea that's going to change the world. You walk in and 3 seconds later, it's shot down even before you realize. And you said, okay. And you say, what? I'm going to work on the next one. You leave, you go back, and you again start thinking. So I think you learn that early on. But that's the beauty of family businesses. Because these are the same people that will help you from, your weaknesses as well as support you. So I think don't create the barrier. I think that's my advice. Don't think about creating a barrier. It's a problem. The barrier is going to be the problem. It's going to hurt your business.
No, I think, and I'll just probably add is, we were never taught in a joint family, you never hold a grudge, Yeah. And that's what goes in business as well. Whether you're in favor of a decision or you're against the decision, you do not hold a grudge. You move on.
Absolutely. That's very true. I think both of you all have really put forth like a lot of good points over here, especially because I feel this this conversation, this question that was actually asked is not really discussed very much in like, you know, on these webinars, on panel discussions or anything, because this is a very personal topic. And I think we've actually been able to talk about this. And I think that's a great thing, especially for people that have been facing these issues, but have not been able to voice it out, you could say. So I do feel like people have really like our viewers have actually benefited through that. So now I think we'll be done with questions, and I'd really like to thank the audience for their really interesting questions, I could say. There are some questions that we have not been able to answer, but please feel free to email it to us at info@gematlas.com. That is info, info @gematlas.com. And this has been a very engaging and insightful discussion. Thank you, Amish bhai. Thank you, Vivek bhai, for sharing your valuable time and expertise. And we hope the audience can actually use these learnings of this discussion in your respective businesses. And we would also like to thank you for being an active one and showing your interest in this topic. And we hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. Any remarks that you would like to put forth, Amish bhai, Vivek bhai?
Personally, thank you, Prithvi, I mean, for having us here. Thank you, Amish bhai. In fact, there's lots, that whatever he said, I can resonate with. Brings back memories of how we've all been growing up in this business. And it's been a very insightful conversation for me as well.
I am in sync with exactly what Vivek said, because most people do panels, and thank you, Prithvi and GemAtlas, especially for inviting myself, because you do panels, you talk about businesses and how businesses are evolving, and that very few people ever bring up the point of the people behind the scenes, the values of families and these family-run businesses. So for myself, I can say this was a very interesting panel, especially having yourself, but very importantly, having Vivek, because we barely know each other, but I think this 1 hour of conversation was very interesting. And that's why I kept smiling every time he was also speaking, because immediately you relate to those moments and conversations like this. You don't realize before you start, but while you're in the conversation, your mind travels through a journey, and the values you hold and the things and the people who are around in your lives today, and how your families mean to you, not only purely from the business, but the overall spectrum. So thank you very much, Priti. Thank you, Vivek, and everybody who's on the panel to spend this time for being here together.
Thank you so much, Vivek bhai, Amish bhai. I hope everyone's had those flashbacks of good times back as much as we have during this panel. So yeah, thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, everyone.